Okay, so here's another type of comparing graph questions. So let's have a look. So figure 8 shows some of the results. Doesn't really matter what the results are particularly. I've got sheltered shore, which is the this one here. So sheltered shore SS, and exposed shore, which is the hash line there. Compare the patterns in the results for the exposed shore and the sheltered shore. Okay, so it's a compare question. I have to use information from that figure. It's worth 3 marks. So 1, 2, 3 bullet points straight away. So I've got 3 marks, so I'm looking at 3 different comparisons, so 3 different regions between, and I'm comparing the black and white striped bars with the grey bars. Okay, so I'll get my ruler out. I want to split this graph into 3 bits. So what do I notice? Well, first bit, I always start at the origin, the start point. I'll start going along the bottom here. I notice that the stripy one is taller, the stripe one's taller, stripe one's taller. Okay, grey one's taller, so I'm going to split that off there. So that's going to be my first bullet point, is going to talk about this region here. Because here, the stripy bar, which is what, exposed shore, there are more limpets on the exposed shore than the sheltered shore. Then it swaps, so I've got more on the sheltered shore, so grey bar's taller, grey bar's taller, grey bar's taller, grey bar's taller. That's interesting, so I'm going to split this bit here. There are no values here at all for the exposed shore. So I'm going to split that off there because that's something else I can talk about. I'm looking, remember, for 3 different regions I can talk about. So that's going to be my second, and that's going to be my third. Okay, now the axis labels in this are horrible. H over W, I've no idea what that means. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the fact it's limpets, number of limpets. I have to use information from figure 8, so you may be a world expert on limpets, but unless you use the information you're provided, you're not going to score any marks for it at all. So let's see how I structure the first one of these. So I'm going to talk about region 1 here, where I know that the number of limpets on exposed shore are more than the sheltered shore, and use information. So, and I always start my comparison statements for graphs off in the same way. For H over W, 0.21, 0.252, 0.31, 0.35. So that's from here to here on the graph. I'm going to put a colon. There are more limpets on which one? Exposed shore. Exposed shore than sheltered shore. Okay, next I'm going to look at region 2, which is from here to here. So I'm going to repeat the way I've written the answer out before. So for H over W, 0.36 to 0.40 to 0.51 to 0.55. There are more limpets on sheltered shore than exposed shore. I'm not trying to change how I word these or how I word the answers at all. I'm deliberately using a format that works. So whenever I do any comparison with graphs, I always split the graph into different regions, and I talk about each region, 1 per bullet. That's all I'm ever doing. And I'm still making sure I'm comparing, because I'm using this more, the more or less. I'm comparing one bar with the other. And I'm getting my data in there because I've got these numbers here, look. Right, the last bullet, so I've got to talk now about region 3 over here. And what have I noticed here? Well, there are no limpets on the exposed shore at all, so only on the sheltered. So I'm just going to see how would I write that. So for H over W 0.56 to 0.6, sorry, O to 0.66 to 0.70, there are only limpets on sheltered shore. Okay, so you could say, instead, there's another way of splitting that graph up. I mean, that would be absolutely fine, but another way of splitting that up is you could say that you could look at the sort of, imagine the peak like that, the way that the shape of these graphs. So if I drew connected all the stripy bars up, and I kind of imagine, right, well, it sort of increases like that and then does this, and I could compare that pattern with, if I did the solid grey bar, it would be like this. So this may well be presented as a bar chart, as a line graph. And if it was, then if I was to split that into regions, then the regions I would split it up into would be here. I'd say there's more over here. I might say it peaks there. This one peaks there. So I might compare the peaks. Okay, but it's the same kind of idea. All right, all we're ever doing is we're taking the graph we've got and we're splitting it up into regions. Okay, and we're identifying what happens in each. Okay, if you wanted to here, you could have easily said that the most number of limpets, for exposed shore was for H over W 0.31 to 0.35 here, whereas the highest number of limpets for the sheltered shore was here. That's another comparison as well. Okay, up to you how you do it. Okay, I hope that helps.